I laughed at the millionaire until I witnessed the heartbreaking moment that changed everything. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. I was standing there, laughing at him, a man bathed in wealth. His tailored suit glimmered under the harsh lights, a walking trophy of success. But why? It all seemed hollow, just a mask. He carried an air of arrogance as he waved his hand dismissively, but I saw through it. Or so I thought. We were in the middle of the bustling gala, surrounded by crystals and laughter, but tension fell heavy in the air. I felt it like a cold breeze crawling down my spine. And there he was, tall and intimidating with a hard face that softened in moments. His eyes, though, they were something else. Dark pools holding secrets yet to be unearthed. His name was Vincent Blackwood. Rumor had it, he made his money in strange ways, dirty deals hidden under layers of charm. I couldn't help but smirk, imagining him counting crisp dollar bills in a dimly lit room, surrounded by smoke. I believed myself to be the clever one. Everyone else was entranced by his charisma, but not me. I was the one person immune to his allure. As I turned back to my friends, their chatter faded into the background. I was lost in my own thoughts. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed across the room. Glass shattered like dreams, turned to dust. I spun around just in time to see Vincent fall to his knees. An expression of pure devastation crossed his face, shocking and real. No more smug arrogance. Just a man crumbling under the weight of a burden I could not yet see. Conversation stopped. Eyes grew wide as silence enveloped us. I felt my heart race. What could break a millionaire like him? A whispering wave of confusion swept through the crowd. Gossip spread like wildfire. His reputation was on the line. Could this be a sign of vulnerability? I took a step forward, drawn to the heartache behind his carefully constructed facade. My breath hitched. I could see glimmers of tears threatening to spill from his eyes, a mix of shock and grief. I had never seen a man like him so utterly dismantled, so exposed. The sneers on my lips faltered, replaced by a pulse of empathy. And then I noticed it, a small golden locket clutched in his shaking hand. It gleamed even in the dim light, radiating warmth in a room filled with freezing indifference. What was inside? A secret? A memory? I couldn't tear my gaze away. It was as if the air crackled with unanswered questions, and I felt a deep pull, a need to uncover the truth. With everyone else watching, murmurs floated around me, their shock palpable. What's happening? Is he okay? Fellow attendees whispered with a mix of concern and glee, their intrigue like vultures circling. Yet, in that moment, something shifted inside me. I wanted to help him. I wanted to know the story hidden beneath his pain. But as I took another step forward, Vincent looked up, locking eyes with me. There was something in his gaze, something that shook me to my core. A flicker of recognition? Or was it fear? My heart raced. I felt an unexpected connection. The questions multiplied, spinning in my mind like a whirlwind. What had happened? What was in that locket? And why did I suddenly care so much about the man I had once mocked? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The gala unfurled in whispers and startled glances, yet the world around us faded. The fabric of his tailored suit crumpled on the floor beside him, his sharp edges softening beneath the weight of his grief. I stood still, rooted to the spot as his gaze bore into mine, a tempest brewing in his eyes. How could someone so adorned in success look so utterly lost? Vincent. I heard my own voice, trembling softly as if I had stumbled into unknown territory. My heart clenched, not out of pity but out of an overwhelming need to understand. He turned away then, the moment fracturing. I felt air rush out of the room, the meandering conversations beginning to swell again. Gossip sparked anew, a fountain of speculation. The crowd began to surround us, and I saw a hunger for scandal demanding a taste of his ruin. In that moment, I became acutely aware of my own place in this whirlwind. I wasn't just an observer. I had a choice. "Excuse me," I said loudly, pushing through the throng with unexpected fierceness. Hope soured my words, mingling with something I couldn't quite name. I stepped into his space, blocking the gazes that pried. "Are you okay?" He stared at me for a moment that felt eternal, then looked down at the locket still trembling between his fingers. I sensed the tide of emotions within him, a volcano poised to erupt. "My sister," he whispered, the words nearly lost in the buzz of the gala. "She's gone. Gone." The word echoed in my mind. I couldn't process it, could barely comprehend how a person like him could feel such loss. He was untouchable. She was everything. His voice cracked, the fierce facade faltering as he held the locket out. I didn't even know she was sick until it was too late. The locket hung in midair, a relic of affection that threatened to shatter under the weight of his grief. What could I say? What could I do? I wanted to reach for it, to cradle whatever memory brought him comfort. Instead, I stepped back, too aware of the crowd pressing in, the fluttering whispers brushing against us like frost. "I'm so sorry." I finally managed, my heart aching with sincerity. A small knot formed within me, like an urgent pulse syncing with the rhythm of his sorrow. What was her name? He hesitated, the barriers around him crystallizing once more. "Elena," he said, the name slivering through the air, soft and fragile. "She was always the light. I thought I could handle things until I couldn't." In those few seconds, his vulnerability spiraled into an unexpected bond. I could sense a storm of emotions swirling beneath the surface, as if shifting currents beckoned for release. Suddenly, the gala, this grand affair meant to celebrate excess, felt unbearably trivial in the face of such grief that I lost the urge to flee, to escape back to the comfort of mocking laughter and the safety of my friends. I resolved to tread deeper into his ocean of pain, hoping to find meaning beneath the churning waves. And just as I opened my mouth to speak again, a heavy hand gripped my shoulder, pulling me back. A familiar face emerged, a sneer etched across his features. It was Noah, my best friend, rising to the occasion with that false bravado I had come to despise. "What are you doing? Are you seriously talking to this freak? Just look at him." I felt the tide of panic wash over me as I glanced between Vincent and Noah, feeling torn between loyalty and a burning desire to stand beside a man cradling such raw heartache. The jeers swelled around me, but Vincent remained silent, heartbroken and defiantly proud. "Keep your voice down," I snapped at Noah, my spirit igniting. He just lost someone dear to him. The words came out harsher than I intended, but I stood my ground. Vincent's expression brought a flicker of surprise, like sunlight through a storm, and an ember of hope ignited within me. Noah exchanged an incredulous look with me, shaking his head in disbelief. "You're really going to defend him? Because he's crying?" "I'm going to be decent," I shot back. The weight of the moment settled heavily in the air, the noise around us fading once more as I took a step closer to Vincent. The locket gleamed in his trembling hand, a silent witness to heartache and lost tales. His eyes met mine again, searching. "Thank you," he whispered, though I could barely hear it over the clamor. Noah's presence felt suffocating. I turned my back to him with a resolution that surprised even me. "Elena?" I asked, focusing again on Vincent, summoning the strength to thread my way through the world of hurt flooding from him. "Tell me about her." But before I could catch his reply, lights flickered. The crowd quieted, transfixed by the scene unfolding before us. A mic crackled to life as an announcement rippled through the air. Just moments later, the words everyone had been whispering crashed over me like winter's chill. "Ladies and gentlemen, I regret to inform you that due to unforeseen circumstances, Vincent Blackwood is once again at the peak of controversy, and his name has just been linked to a major scandal involving embezzlement." And just like that, the World ID barely stepped into wrapped itself tightly around us, clutching with icy fingers, leaving the warmth of connection snuffed out in an instant. The floor beneath me felt as though it might dissolve, taking everything familiar with it. I stood frozen, the eruption of the crowd's chatter drowning out any semblance of hope I had sought to nurture in that fragile moment with Vincent. My heart raced, displaced from my chest, colliding with the implications of that infamous name Blackwood. Vincent's face contorted, and for the first time, I noticed the rigid lines of his jaw, the tautness of his skin, like a portrait of exquisite agony. His dark eyes, once soft and brimming with sorrow, now reflected confusion and betrayal. The laughter and whispers behind me swarmed like wasps, eagerly savoring the scent of ruin. Embezzlement? I could hardly form the words. It cut into the air, a sharpened blade that sliced through the connection we had just begun to forge. Is that true? His gaze fell to the floor, a wave of vulnerability crashing over him once more, perhaps even worse than before. It's a lie, he breathed, each word bitter. They're trying to destroy me. I've given everything to my family's legacy, and now the jagged edge of his grief transformed into anger, an emotional storm that cast shadows over our fragile moment. I wanted to reach for him, to salvage whatever pieces of faith he had left, but a tangible tension hung in the air, a rift I wasn't sure how to bridge. That I am sorry, I faltered, uncertain of how to navigate the increasingly turbulent waters. I want to help you. Help me? His voice rose sharply, a wounded roar that plucked at the air. You just witnessed the world take everything from me in seconds. What can you do? I stepped back, taken aback by the force of his Pina tempest I had inadvertently wandered into, one that felt too vast for me to traverse. My thoughts flickered toward Noah, still looming at the periphery, that old loyalty clashing violently with the compassion surging within me. It felt colossal, like a tidal wave, threatening to sweep me away. Look, people say things, they spread lies. I stumbled over the words, desperate to reach him, to reground us somehow. Have you spoken to anyone? A lawyer? Vincent shook his head, his hands trembling around the locket. Two can't. Not now. He turned away, isolating himself within his turmoil, the facade of elegance now a brittle shell. Each gaze that landed on him pulled me back to the gnawing reality of the gala, every smile and glass raised in celebration now mocking, a chorus of delight in his unraveling. Yet, amidst the chaos, I flickered back to that brief connection. The quiet moments crashed beneath a heavy wave. Vincent, I pleaded softly, taking a tentative step forward. You can't carry this all alone. Please, let me help. A spark of something flickered in his eyes. Was it hope? Relief? It was fleeting, yet enough to tether me to the moment, to his raw truth. No one can help me now, he whispered, and for a heartbeat, we stood at an intersection, crimson waves forming behind him, threatening to sweep everything in darkness. But then, a whisper of kindness caught my attention. An elderly woman, who had been silently watching the gala from her corner, stepped forward. Unfazed by the crowd's tension, she approached us, her presence a tribute to compassion that starkly contrasted the chaos. Excuse me, young man, she said gently, extending her hand toward Vincent. I didn't mean to overhear, but I believe you should know that not everything you hear is the whole truth. He blinked at her, disbelief etched onto his face. The crowd behind us seemed to buzz with impatience. Yet in this moment, the compassion she offered stood like a lighthouse amidst a storm. My late husband had his name dragged through the mud for something he never did. It can feel insurmountable, but truth always finds a way to surface. She squeezed his hand, a lifeline of warmth. And those who care will always stand with you. In that small exchange, the atmosphere shifted, clarity lighting up an otherwise sinking ship. Hope rose, but it felt tenuous, a mere tease in the smothering heat of the gala frenzy. Thank you, Vincent murmured, still looking lost but grasping the kindness almost desperately. But before I could finally take a breath of relief, Noah exploded once more, impatience oozing from him as he surveyed the scene. You're just going to listen to an old lady? This is not a fairy tale. His words sliced through the healing moment like a knife. Vincent's shoulders tensed, the weight of expectation crashing down once more. I need, Vincent began, but his voice hitched, the foundation of our brief connection wavering. I need to speak to the board. I need, but his words were lost to the resurfacing outcry, a new wave of whispers sweeping through the crowd. I peered behind me, dread curling tightly around my heart. Luxury ushers and security guards were converging on our circle. Vincent Blackwood? One of the guards called. You need to come with us. And just like that, all I could do was watch as the ground fell away beneath him once more, pulled against his will into the storm of scandal that loomed over him. The elderly woman stepped back as the authority loomed closer, and I felt the breath choke in my throat, crushed by the impending inevitability of what would come next. Wait, I shouted, desperation flooding my veins. My step forward felt futile, but I surged against the swell. Don't take him. But the guards were unyielding, and Vincent's gaze lingered on Macotte between fear and resignation. The fragile light of hope flickered, and I found myself standing at the edge of despair, uncertain of how to pull him from the abyss closing in around us. And as he was led away, the crushing realization dawned upon me. This was only the beginning of Vincent Blackwood's unraveling. I stood, heart pounding, a prisoner to my own choices, wrestling with the knowledge that my world had begun to tilt irrevocably off balance. The gala, once a monument to glamour, had devolved into a battleground of emotions, shimmering lights flickering through my blurred vision as I grappled with the void Vincent's absence carved into the air. Each passing second felt like a drumroll heralding the storm that was yet to break over our heads. I had lost him. The realization felt like a lead weight in my chest, heavy and suffocating. Noah's voice rang like a bell in my ears, a harsh reminder of the loyalty I still clung to. "This is exactly why you should have stayed away from him," he admonished, his body tense, an electric storm of frustration bound up in his limbs. "But you don't understand," I protested, my own voice a pleading whisper. "He's not what they say. He needs support, someone he can trust." "Trust? You think he's capable of that? He comes from a family of lies and deception. Don't be fooled." Noah's harsh retort was a slap against the very foundation of my swirling convictions. "He'll drag you into his mud too. You need to wake up." I wanted to argue, to thrust every hopeful thought like a sword through the thick wall of skepticism surrounding his words, but my mind betrayed me. My thoughts scattered into a tempest of conflicted emotions. Did I truly know Vincent? Did I know the truth about him? The momentary witness of that elderly woman's compassion provided a flicker of light, but it was refracted by doubt warping my understanding. Just as quickly, a shadow passed over my resolve, pulling me back into the darkness of uncertainty. The gala gradually morphed around me into a backdrop of muted conversations and absurd laughter, everything while I stood still, contemplating the unraveling fate of someone I barely knew yet felt inexplicably tied to. Just then, something shifted in the crowd. A ripple of surprise passed through the crowd as they turned to face an approaching figure, sharp and commanding. "Clear the way," came a new voice, the tone smooth yet laden with authority. Vincent's father, a towering silhouette draped in tailored financier colors that spoke to someone who wielded influence with ease, surged into the scene. The air thickened with tension as the heavy footsteps sank into the carpet. The crowd parted for him like waves yielding to a rising tide. I felt my pulse quicken, my heart rate duplicating into a furious rhythm. Vincent's father had the power to crush his son, to solidify the walls of the prison he was already shackled within. "Vincent," his voice thundered across the room, compelling everyone's attention. "What have I told you about bringing disgrace to our name?" Shock pierced through me. My chest tightened as I sought Vincent in the maelstrom of uniforms, the last vestiges of our connection slipping through my fingers. The guards stood rigid, the hall quiet except for the heavy echoes of disappointment that dripped from his father's voice. But I caught a glimpse of Vincent's face, a mirror of defeat and indignation. It ignited something within me, fiery ember of rebellion. I shot forward, driven by instinct, pulling away from Noah's reluctant grip. "You can't talk to him like that," I cried, my voice mingling with the buzz of drama, blending into the chaos of accusations gnawing at the edges of the room. Vincent's head turned sharply toward me, another tempest brewing in those dark eyes. It held a shred of gratitude, yet I could hear the unspoken plea for me to retreat, to distance myself from this drama. But the current pulled me further along, igniting the flame of defiance I barely recognized in myself. "Just leave him alone," I shouted, the words bursting forth, fiery and raw. "He doesn't deserve this. Not from you. Not from anyone." Everyone held their breath, absorbing the confrontation. It felt as if the air had solidified, bringing the grand spectacle of the gala to a standstill. The security guards shifted uncomfortably, glancing between Vincent and his father, the drama unfolding like a warped fruit every eye was drawn to. His father's brows knitted together, a mixture of surprise and indignation flashing across his face. "You speak as though you know him," he seethed, drawing closer. "No," I retorted, my heart pounding with aching hope, "but I see how much he hurts." I won't stand by while you belittle him. You're tearing him apart. The tension crackled, the gallery of society holding its collective breath. Vincent shifted slightly, as if trying to gauge the weight of my words. Was there a flicker of agreement? Or was I a fool dancing too close to the flames? His father's face grew taut, the disdainful mask cracking to reveal a vulnerable disbelief beneath. And that fleeting second felt monumental wounded pride blending painfully with the reality his son was facing. I felt no satisfaction in it, only the heart-wrenching urge to shield Vincent from his father's looming wrath. You will regret speaking to me this way, he hissed, his voice barely above a whisper. It slithered into the air like poison, an undetectable threat. Just as the confrontation reached its peak, a new presence arrived, an uninvited guest at the apex of chaos. An unknown woman stepped forward, her striking features framed by a shock of golden hair, cascading down her shoulders. I have evidence, she announced, her voice slicing through the hush, carrying a hesitant yet firm authority that commanded attention. The world spun, the promise of possibility, rising before me like the dawn chasing away the dark. If there was truth hidden in her words, it could change everything. But then, in a twist of fate that turned my stomach, Vincent recoiled as if stung. His eyes widened, shadows eclipsing their once vibrant light, and oh, he murmured, the anguish breaking through the barrier of anger he had constructed. No, not her. The gala erupted into a cacophony of whispers, the murmurings re-establishing their grip on the air. I stood there, paralyzed, caught in the maelstrom of Vincent's unraveling, desperate for him to reclaim hope, and horrified at what this new revelation could mean. But amidst the impending storm, one thing struck me with alarming clarity. The truth was far more complicated than any of us had realized, and it was about to unfurl with relentless force, tearing apart everything I held dear. The tension in the gala thickened, simmering like a pot on the verge of boiling over. Vincent's reaction to the golden-haired woman was immediate and visceral, 1,000 emotions flashing across his face in a matter of seconds. It was as if the very foundation of his existence had been shaken by the mere utterance of those two words. I have evidence. I felt my heart plummet. The fear that gripped him sent tendrils of worry spiraling within me. I could sense his turmoil ripple outward, pulling me deeper into the chaos. Vincent, I implored, stepping closer, my voice urgent yet barely audible over the rising clamor. What's happening? He turned to me, anguish etching lines on his brow. You shouldn't be here. Not now. The desperation in his voice echoed, the sting of unadulterated fear carving a path through my resolve. The unknown woman stepped forward, her gaze unwavering. I can help you, Vincent. You just have to trust me. His sharp intake of breath resonated through the thrumming silence, and then he shook his head vehemently. Get away from me. The anguish in his voice crushed me, twisting my heart in an unforgiving vice. There was pain layered beneath his words, a juxtaposition of fear and betrayal. He didn't want help. He wanted to hide. In that illuminating moment, it pierced through me like a blade. His walls had been built to protect him from hurt. But at what cost? I stood at the precipice of his storm, torn between the urge to leap into the chaos with him and the instinct to retreat into safety. Vincent, I cried again, this time louder, fear intermingling with my determination. You don't have to face this alone. Just let me in. But before he could respond, a figure emerged from the shadows of his father, wearing a mask of bemused interest. Cassandra. Webs of deceit danced in her eyes, plotting, planning. All of this is rather entertaining, she remarked, her gaze flicking between the woman and Vincent, her smile carrying a wicked undertone. But is the truth always so palatable? Vincent stiffened further, his anger morphing into something darker. You think this is a game? He shot back, his voice trembling with suppressed fury. You don't understand what's at stake. On the contrary, Cassandra's caustic tone dripped with mockery. I know everything. And this, she gestured to the space around us, is just the beginning. Your father will never let you escape, especially not now. I watched helplessly as the panic swirled in Vincent's eyes, a tempest of fear and confusion threatening to drown him. The air was thick with unspoken words, each moment folding into the next, the past colliding violently with the present. Then, unexpectedly, a gentle hand grazed my arm. It was Noah, his face laced with uncertainty, but a hint of empathy softened his features. He leaned in closer, his voice a mere whisper. You need to let go. This isn't your fight, and it could destroy you. But the fiery resolve within me ignited anew. Noah, I can't just stand back and watch him crumble. I can't. His hand slipped away, leaving behind a faint warmth that lingered just long enough to ground me. With every heartbeat, doubt gnawed at my thoughts, but I couldn't turn my back now. I wouldn't. I stepped away from Noah, focusing entirely on Vincent, willing the warmth of my words to reach him. Please, trust me. Let's work together. Whatever it is we're facing, we can face it together. Vincent's expression softened for just a fraction of a second, a flicker of hope igniting in the depths of his stormy eyes. But it was snuffed out by an urgent urgency lurking just beyond the horizon. The woman with golden hair stood resolutely, angry whispers brewing among the crowd that I know about the business dealings, Vincent about the rumors swirling around your family. Her voice carried a weight of truth that hung heavy in the air, and I felt the mounting pressure of his past press down on him like a vice. Those words slashed through Vincent's defenses, and for an instant, I felt the ground beneath us tremble. What do you know? He demanded, the tremor in his voice betraying his attempt to maintain composure. That I have proof that could shatter everything your father holds dear. The power he clings to is built on falsehoods. Vincent, if you let me help, we can take him down. The air hummed with uncertainty. Hope and desperation wrestled within me as I searched Vincent's face. Should I believe this woman? Could she be trusted, or would she lead Vincent deeper into a pit of despair? My heart receded, a sliver of time stretched interminably. Vincent, don't listen to her. I stepped forward again, compelled to protect him. She could be lying. You can't just take her at face value. But in that moment, the choice was taken from my hands as Vincent's features hardened, a decision forged in the fires of turmoil and strife. I don't need lies anymore. His words cut through me, carrying the implications sharper than any blade. With determination flooding his gaze, he turned to the woman. Show me. And just like that, everything shifted, spiraling into uncharted territory. The truth, whatever it was, danced just beyond our reach. Yet I felt the weight of my own heart shatter the fragments piercing my soul, leaving me startled in the recognition that I was losing him to the very darkness I sought to rescue him from. As Vincent stepped toward the unknown, I shouted after him, desperation clawing at my throat. No, don't go. But the uncertainty of what awaited him loomed larger than my pleas. The crowd pulsed, a sea of whispered gasps and expectant stares, each person encroaching on our reality. And as the last echoes of my voice faded into the distance, a chilling realization engulfed me. The storm was far from over. It was only just beginning. The air crackled with tension as Vincent crossed the threshold toward the woman, leaving me behind, helpless and frantic in his wake. My heartbeat thundered against my ribcage, a cacophony of dread and despair. Every instinct screamed for me to pull him back, to drag him away from whatever abyss he was willing to plunge into. I couldn't bear the thought of losing him to this chaotic storm. Vincent, I cried again, the desperation in my voice cutting through the haze of curiosity that surrounded the gathering crowd. Please, don't go. But he didn't turn back. His focus remained fixed ahead, the resolve in his posture a testament to his determination to confront the shadows of his past. The hand grasped my arm. Lauren, her expression one of empathic sorrow. He needs to do this. If he believes he can find answers, you can't stop him. But at what cost? I retorted fiercely, my voice trembling. Each breathed syllable was laced with fear, not just for Vincent, but for the reasons that lurked in the darkness of his family's history. The pieces of a puzzle I didn't fully grasp hung before me, and I couldn't shake the dread that surrounded whatever truth lay ahead. The murmur of the crowd intensified as Vincent and the woman withdrew to a quieter corner of the gala. I was left adrift amid churning emotions, a million questions screaming in my mind. Watching them from a distance, I felt like an outsider in my own life, thrumming with an unsettling energy that tinged the air with foreboding. Noah sidled closer again, concern etched in his brow. What if she's telling the truth, Celine? What if she could be the key to freeing him? I wanted to snap and answer, his pragmatism sharpened like a blade against my raw panic. You don't understand, Noah. What if she's leading him into a trap? He's already hurting. I can't stand by and let that happen. Then help him, he urged, his voice a quiet whisper against the tumult. Be the anchor he needs. Convince him it's a mistake. I looked up from the scene, heart racing at the thought. I had always found strength in supporting those I cared about, but in this moment, my ability felt velvety, fragile, and thin. I had to try. With renewed purpose, I stepped forward again, every fiber of my being urging me to bridge the chasm between Vincent and the truths threatening to engulf him. But just as I took a step, darkness flitted past my peripheral vision, the backlit figure of Cassandra detaching from the shadows. Her laughter, cold and mocking, reverberated as she glided up to Noah and me. Oh, darling, she crooned, tilting her head slightly, her eyes glinting with malice. Isn't it charming to think you can shield him from the truth? Bless your earnest little heart. But you have to understand, that boy thrives in chaos. He always has. One thrives in chaos, I said firmly, squaring my shoulders against her insidious taunts. He's floundering, and you know it. Cassandra leaned in, her voice a soft, sweet venom. You should tread carefully, Celine. You're playing with fire. Vincent's destiny was etched long before you entered the picture. You don't know what you're up against. The smile on her lips was malicious, the meaning hidden in layers of well-bred deceit. She had seized upon my fears, turning them against me like a weapon. My hands clenched into fists, fueled by a surge of rage and anxiety. Why couldn't she just leave us alone? Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the corner where Vincent stood with the woman, snapping me from my thoughts. I spun around, heart racing, and saw a nearby table had collapsed. Broken glass littered the floor like shattered promises, the guests gaping in stunned silence. Vincent! I screamed, feeling my heart lurch. There he stood, his expression transformed from determination to horror as he took a step backward, shock pulsing through him like electricity. The woman stumbled, struggling to regain her balance, and Vincent's face twisted in fear. He was being drawn into a whirlwind that threatened to sweep him away. I pushed past the gathering crowd, desperation igniting my legs, propelling me forward. Celine, wait. Noah called after me, but I pressed on, adrenaline pumping with every step as I closed the distance. Vincent, please. Just as I reached them, the room erupted in chaos. The lights flickered, plunging us into a disorienting darkness before snapping back to life, revealing a scene of disorder, the aftermath of shattered expectations. But it was Vincent's face that haunted me, raw and filled with confusion as he cast a glance my way, searching amidst the swirling turmoil. Celine, he shouted in a voice that broke like glass. Before he could finish his thought, a loud voice rang out from behind me. Cassandra again, laughter laced through her words like poison. You really should have listened to me, Vincent. The truth is more powerful than you could have imagined. Welcome to your reckoning. Fear pooled in my gut, and for a moment, my world tilted. There were layers of implications in her words. What had she unleashed? The consequences of whatever revelation hung in the air, thick as smoke, filled me with urgency. Time was slipping like sand between my fingers. I turned to Vincent, poised to fight against any fate begging to ensnare him. I froze. In that moment, I saw him for what he truly was, a man standing at the crossroads of his own destiny, teetering on the edge of an uncertain abyss. And with Cassandra's smirk stretching across her face, it was all too clear. This journey was far from over. It was just beginning. The atmosphere crackled with a charged tension as the cacophony of the gala swelled around us, but all I could register was the frantic look on Vincent's face. His fear reflected my own, and for a brief, agonizing second, our gazes locked. The weight of Cassandra's words hung like a dark cloud, suffocating the hope that flickered within me. Celine, his voice, filled with both terror and an unspoken plea, snapped my thoughts back into focus. But there was something darker stealing into his eyes, a shadow whispering that the truth he had sought might indeed be more than I could bear. Vincent, please, don't listen to her, I shouted, pushing through the crowd that was beginning to murmur in hushed surprise, their eager faces illuminated by the flickering lights, a sea of concerned expressions drowning in the chaos. But before I could reach him, the woman he had been speaking to stepped forward. She exuded a sudden confidence that belied her earlier unsteadiness. You need to hear this, Vincent. Her tone was insistent, drawing him in like a moth to a flame. Stay away from him, I screamed, adrenaline surging as I sprinted forward, the world around me fading in significance. But just as I reached him, the wind shifted, carrying with it scents of cotton candy and perfume, mingling to form a saccharine barrier holding me at bay. Celine, it's okay. She's not trying to hurt me. Vincent's voice shook, but there was a steely resolve lining his words that frightened me more than Cassandra's machinations. I need to know. I stopped short, heart falling as the reality settled like a lead weight in my chest. The fragility of his resolve suddenly seemed like a tiny ship adrift in an ocean of turbulent waves. No, Vincent, please. You don't know what you're asking for. The woman, seemingly untouched by the calamity she had invoked, leaned in closer, her voice a soft caress that felt more like a noose tightening around my throat. I promise, Vincent, I can reveal everything about your family. I can give you the answers you've been seeking, the closure you so desperately need. Closure? I spat back, hands trembling at my sides. No amount of information will fix what you're trying to pull him into. Cassandra's laughter echoed in a chilling sound that wove through the chaos like a serpent. You're wasting your breath, Celine. Once he's seen, he can't unsee. Who knows what monsters will emerge in the light of the truth? Shut up, I yelled, desperate to push back against her treachery. But even as the words left my lips, doubt wormed its way into my mind. What if she was right? What if Vincent was bound to a fate darker than either of us could anticipate? What's the truth? Vincent pressed, eyes darting back to the woman, his curiosity piqued, reeling him in further toward the precipice. Tell me, please. The woman smiled, a knowing glimmer in her eyes, and leaned even closer, lowering her voice to a conspiratorial whisper that seemed to extract breath from the room around us. Your father, he was involved in something much bigger than you can imagine. The decisions he made shaped not just your family's legacy, but the paths of many others. My heart sank. The pieces of the puzzle I had feared were being pulled into place. An unseen darkness loomed, and nightmarish questions flooded my mind. Vincent, don't, I cried, searching desperately for anything to pull him back. Suddenly, chaos erupted as the booming voice of the events coordinator cut through the tension like a knife. Ladies and gentlemen, please. We apologize for the disruption. Thank you for your patience as we resolve these technical issues. In that moment of distraction, Vincent's gaze flickered back to mine, filled with something I could no longer comprehend. What had she uncovered? What legacy lay hidden in the folds of his family history? Vincent, we can leave. We don't have to. My words faltered as the realization dawned that he was no longer the boy I had first fallen for, no longer the man lost in the labyrinth of his past. The shadows of the revelation were consuming him, and he didn't even recognize it. Celine, he said slowly, nearly choking on the weight of it, I have to know the truth. I can't live this way anymore. And just like that, in the midst of the tumult, the fullness of his decision settled between us like an anchor. There was no turning back. As much as I wanted to reach for him, desperation clawing at my heart, I felt the void widen, the chasm of secrets threatening to tear us apart. Vincent, please, I whispered, voice trembling. But he rebuffed me with a shake of his head. Celine, I need to face this. I can't run away anymore. A chill swept through me, and with it came the haunting implications of his impending choice. What if the truth wasn't just a revelation? What if it was a curse, one that could erase everything we had? And then, from somewhere deep within the crowd, a figure stepped forward, a stranger who seemed to resonate with an air of urgency. Wait, you don't know the whole story. Everyone turned, Vincent's eyes darting back toward the newcomer with a mix of dread and curiosity. Time froze as the room held its breath. What secrets lay behind those words? Would this revelation lead us deeper into darkness, or would it finally set Vincent free? The uncertainty coursed between us like an electric current, and I could only watch as the tides of fate began to shift around us. Something monumental was unfolding, and I was powerless to stop it. The echo of destiny began to chime, and I could feel the weight of inevitability close in, a shadow larger than either of us could comprehend. The crowd buzzed with hushed whispers as the newcomer, a man dressed in a simple, unassuming suit that contrasted sharply with the opulence surrounding us, approached Vincent. His eyes, dark and stormy, seemed to see beyond the confetti-tossed glamour of the gala, piercing straight to the heart of the turmoil. As he drew nearer, I pressed my palms against my sides to keep myself steady, trying to quell the rising tide of panic that threatened to engulf me. Who are you? Vincent's voice was firm, but I could hear the tremble beneath his bravado. I know about your family, Vincent. I know the truth you're seeking, the stranger replied, each word carrying the weight of an anchor dropping into murky waters. But you have to understand, the truth is a double-edged sword. It can free you or destroy you. Then tell me, Vincent demanded, the urgency in his tone a stark contrast to my own deepening dread. What do you know? I stepped closer to Vincent, my heart racing as if trying to merge our fates into one. The crowd, momentarily distracted by this figure who disrupted their fanciful evening, seemed to hold its collective breath, waiting for an explosion of revelations. The man's gaze flickered to me, a fleeting moment of acknowledgement before he turned back to Vincent. This isn't a place for this conversation. Not here. Don't you dare, I interjected, my voice barely above a whisper yet charged with defiance. Don't pull him further into this darkness. Whatever you know, we can find another way. Vincent looked between us, the weight of the world pressing down upon him. The conflict raged visibly in his eyes, caught between the unholy allure of knowledge and the desperate cry for protection. Celine, don't you see? This is my past, my story. If I don't know it, I can't move forward. Move forward to what? I shot back, fury igniting within me. More questions? More pain. A family legacy wrapped in shame. You were happier as a stranger, Vincent. What if this truth just shatters everything? I have to know, he whispered, eyes straining for resolve. But even I could see the flicker of fear behind the determination. Before I could respond, the stranger stepped closer, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial whisper, filling the space between us with tension. Your father, he was tangled in things that could endanger you both. But it's not just the past, it's the present. There are people watching. Vincent stilled, urgency flaring anew in his gaze, but I felt my stomach twist at the implication. What do you mean? Watching? Let's just say your family legacy has consequences beyond what anyone can imagine. It's not just who you were, it's who you will become. The stranger's keen eyes scanned the crowd, as if weighing the echoes of unseen threats lurking among the gala's guests. In that moment, everything seemed to congeal into a singular reality. The extravagance of the event around us faded, replaced by the pressing atmosphere of danger. I grabbed Vincent's arm, the gravity of this conversation weighing down on me like a chain. Vincent, we need to leave. Now. But his eyes bore into the stranger, a mixture of desperation and need illuminating his features. You can't just drop this on me and expect me to walk away. If there's danger, I need to know. What's the point of living in the shadow of secrets? The stranger shook his head, frustration deepening the lines on his forehead. You're playing a dangerous game, Vincent. This isn't just about your father's choices. This is about what's to come. Those who would do anything to silence anyone peeking into the past. The chill swept through the air, washing over me as Vincent inhaled sharply. An unexpected warmth filled the tension as a nearby guest, a kind-looking woman with a gentle smile, stepped forward. She seemed to recognize the intensity of the moment, reaching out as if to tether us to some semblance of safety. Is everything all right here? Her question, though innocent, cut through like a sharp knife, and I could feel the eyes of the crowd shifting our way. I turned back to Vincent, who was now trembling, caught between enlightenment and the gnawing fear of what lay ahead. Celine, he started, his voice shaky. I can't run from this. If my family has enemies, we have to face them. But I don't want to do this alone. Suddenly, a commotion broke out across the hall, the laughter and chatter swirling into chaos as a group of individuals in dark suits moved toward us with an unwavering purpose. Fear raced through me as my instincts screamed for flight, for safety, but I stood frozen, my heart grappling with the looming reality. Vincent, we have to. But before I could finish, a malevolent figure broke away from the group, eyes locked on us. Vincent, you don't want to know? He growled, voice dripping with menace. The man's cold gaze seemed to clutch at my throat and squeeze, pulling both of us deeper into a maelstrom that offered no way out. I looked at Vincent, and in that moment, as the truth hung unspoken in the air, I knew that whatever lay ahead would unravel the very fabric of who we were. As the stranger's warning echoed in my ears and the hostility inched closer, a dark truth loomed. intertwining our fates like a twisted vine. Would we thrive in the light of this newly unveiled reality, or be consumed by the shadows it cast? Time unraveled, leaving us teetering on the brink of an uncharted abyss, and fate prepared to strike. As the figure advanced, I felt Vincent's grip tighten around my hand, a lifeline tethering us in the midst of crumbling certainties. I could see the determination etched on his face, but it was a mask creeping with trepidation. The shadows of the dark-suited men loomed larger with every heartbeat, and the once glamorous atmosphere of the gala seemed to suffocate under a thick cloud of fear. Celine, Vincent's voice trembled as he glanced between the approaching danger and the stranger whose warnings tangled our future in uncertainty. I wanted to shield him from the impending storm. The pull of the truth felt magnetic, yet the potential for devastation was palpable. The instinct to flee battled with the need to confront, to unveil a tapestry of secrets woven tightly through his lineage. Amidst the chaos, I searched the crowd for allies, anyone who might offer support. A woman still lingered close, her demeanor calm against the mounting tension, sensing perhaps that something vital was about to unfold. She moved subtly closer, her presence somehow grounding. "Vincent, listen to me," I urged, desperate to break through the haze of curiosity and fear that clouded his judgment. "If this truth threatens our safety, whatever it entails can wait. We have time to figure it out. We can find answers together, later." The softness of my voice contrasted violently with the urgency swirling around us. He tore his gaze from the encroaching threat, meeting my eyes with a ferocity that ignited something deep within me. "But I need to know what's coming, Celine. If we ignore this now, we might lose everything. I won't stand by and repeat the mistakes of the past." His spirit flared against the backdrop of looming danger, and though I understood his passion, I could not shake the premonition of a dark horizon fast approaching us. Just then, the men in dark suits halted. A palpable tension crackled in the air, all eyes fixated on the stranger. It felt as though the world held its breath, caught between the oppression of past sins and the desperate grasp for redemption. "Read." The malevolent figure cut through the silence, his voice laced with an unmistakable challenge. "You think you can unravel a legacy without paying the price? Knowledge comes at a cost, and I'm here to collect." The stranger, Reed, squared his shoulders, his calm demeanor suddenly shifting into a resolute stance. "You don't scare him," he croaked defiantly, revealing veins of scarred wisdom hidden beneath his unassuming facade. "But you will if you don't turn back now." The air thickened, and for a fleeting moment, I saw doubt flicker across the man's face, and it was enough to embolden me. "We're leaving," I stated boldly, gripping Vincent's arm, trying to steer him away, yet he remained still, unmoving. "Celine, please," Vincent implored, desperation coating his words. "I can't go with you and just forget this." "Not now. Not now, but not here either," I countered, my heart pounding. "We need a moment to breathe, away from this. You said it yourself, there's something bigger than us at play, but we can't fight it standing here." Before he could argue, Reed stepped into the fray, perhaps sensing the delicate balance shifting. "Move while you still can," he urged, his eyes darting once more toward the encroaching figures, urgency dancing in his voice. But the malevolent figure didn't miss a beat, stepping forward ominously as he extended his hand in our direction, a gesture oddly reminiscent of a predator reclaiming dominion over its prey. "You think you can simply walk away, Vincent? The shadows have long been summoned, and they won't let you escape their grasp." That a shiver coursed through me, a stark chill that left me instinctively clinging tighter to Vincent, who lingered in indecision. I could see that now, the turmoil within him wrestled against reams of history neither of us could fully grasp. Yet there it was, the beautiful, painful truth. The promise of understanding weighed heavy against the grave risk of severing the bonds of safety we clung to. Just as panic was about to overwhelm me, a breakthrough flickered. Through the haze, a fleeting smile shared between the kind woman and me, where hope resonated in her steady gaze. She moved closer, her presence acting like a protective shield. "You don't have to fight this battle alone," she said softly, her voice ringing like a bell of solidarity. Vincent turned, drawn to her strength, and for a brief second, the fear that had gripped him loosening its hold. "Why are you helping us?" he asked, vulnerable and unsure, a tender flicker of connection cutting through the darkness encircling us. The woman offered a gentle smile and replied, "Because sometimes, even when you feel like running, standing together is the bravest choice you can make." The sincerity of her words lit a beacon of hope within me, warming a part of my heart that had been frozen with fear. But before we could act on this newfound camaraderie, I felt the dark figure's eyes piercing into me, the tension between us thickening like a noose. "You are weak, Vincent," he hissed, a threat hovering on the edge of his statement. "Allowing herself to lead you will cost you dearly both here and in the shadows waiting." The words hung heavy. An acute realization flooding over me. Here was no escaping this degradation of safety and trust, and we stood at a precipice in the storm. We were all but a breath away from teetering into depths we may not return from. And as I met Vincent's gaze, a torrent of realization spiraled through me. The truth was not only a double-edged sword, it could possess the power to fracture our fragile alliance. The moment we chose to uncover our past, we may very well be inviting our undoing together or apart. With a jolt, I turned as the threat pressed closer, danger now colliding with the path of hope we forged in the shadows. The choice loomed, and just as the darkness encircled us, I whispered the one truth we could grasp: whatever lies ahead, we face it together or not at all. And asked myself, as I clutched Vincent's hand with a force that threatened to break the skin, would this be the rallying cry that saved us or the moment that doomed us? As the threat loomed closer, a taut silence wrapped around us like a tightening noose, and all the laughter and dancing from before faded into a distant memory. The dark-suited men had become a silent reckoning, and with every inch they moved toward us, the gravity of our reality anchored heavier around my heart. Vincent stood beside me, flanked by my desperate need for him to see that peril danced delicately on the edge of this truth he sought. And yet, the flickering of hope battled against uncertainty in his eyes as he stared into the darkness ahead, that I squeezed his hand tighter, summoned by an instinct to shield him, to remind him that we were not alone in this storm. "We'll find a way through," I whispered, my voice trembling but laced with unyielding resolution. Vincent's gaze finally broke from the approaching men, his eyes meeting mine, a fusion of fear and resolve swirling between us, tethering him away from the shadows. "Celine, I don't want to drag you into this. This is my truth, my burden to bear." His voice was barely a whisper. I could see the struggle to keep the vulnerability beneath surrender at bay. "Don't you see?" I breathed, my heart surging with the intensity of this moment. "We face it together, or we risk losing everything. If you struggle against it alone, you may never find your way back." And then, against the impending storm gathering in the room, I felt something shift, a flicker of acceptance in his gaze as it illuminated the edges of his wavering spirit. But as Vincent squared his shoulders, ready to confront this whirlwind of painful revelations, the striking figure of Cassandra emerged from the shadows, her smirk a testament to the vicious game she played. "Ah, the tragic lovers bound by loyalty. You think you can outmaneuver the truth?" she taunted. "Just know, every truth bears a price, especially those within your lineage." "Enough," I shouted, the flare of my voice slicing through her mocking laughter like a beacon of defiance. But the cost of the truth laid bare, and Vincent's expression tugged painfully at the hope I had tried so hard to nurture. Was he ready to confront the consequences that came with whatever monsters stirred beneath the surface of his family's legacy? Just then, the space around us shifted, a murmuration of whispers rising like a tempest from the crowd as the dark-suited men pressed closer. "Vincent, we need to go," I urged, desperation coloring my voice. "Running won't solve anything." He shot back, but uncertainty flickered across his face. "If there's something that can free us, then I can't hide. And what if that freedom comes at the cost of losing each other?" My heart ached at the thought of what lay ahead, the reality wrapping itself tighter around us. As if sensing our turmoil, the kind woman stepped forward once more, a composed figure amidst the chaos. "Remember," she said, her voice warm against the coldness suffusing the air, "the path to truth may seem paved with darkness, but choose wisely how you navigate it, or you may find yourself lost forever." And with those words, I realized the perilous game we were caught in. With every choice made, every risk taken, We were drafting the pages of our own story, one that could lead either to liberation or utter destruction. Just as the figures drew nearer, a voice cut through the tension, ricocheting across the room. "You don't know who you're playing with, Reed." It was Vincent's father, a looming figure clad in authority and intimidation. "Now step back while you still can." The room fell to a hush, and I felt Vincent tense beside me, caught between the struggle of familial loyalty and the burgeoning desire for autonomy. "This has nothing to do with you," he called, each word biting through the uncertainty that hung precariously, threatening to strangle his spirit. "Everything about this involves the family name," his father thundered, venom threading through his words. "You think facing this will free you? It will only unravel you further." But in that moment, something available within Vincent's spark-heated defiance ignited beyond anything I'd ever seen. "I may have spent my entire life running from it, but no longer. I cannot continue in the shadows of my family's sins." The bravery etched upon his features as he challenged the very foundation of his lineage made my heart swell with pride. But the storm was not close to abating. The dark-suited figures surged forward, and I felt the weight of impending consequence press heavily onto our shoulders. I glanced at the kind woman, who had stood steadfastly at our side throughout, her expression radiant with the understanding of the choices we faced. "Celine," Vincent said, urgency now threading through his urgency's every note as fear flickered in his eyes once more. "If we're going to take this leap, promise me you'll stand by my side." "Always," I replied passionately, the weight of my own truth flooding forth. "They'll fight for you, whatever that looks like. You won't lose me to this." And then, just as the poised danger from Cassandra's sinister aura closed in on us, the air shifted like a storm ready to break. "If that's the case," I said defiantly, "then let's face whatever lies ahead." Just then, the ground seemed to tremble beneath our feet. In that moment of electric determination pulsing between us, a gasp echoed across the crowd, and as if a light had cracked through a dense fog, everything realigned in that singular moment. Suddenly, from across the room, a blast of illumination erupted, a flash, and the irreversible scent of betrayal and revelation filled the air. The world around us tumbled into vivid chaos, sounds colliding like shards of glass, and instinct kicked in. "Celine, now," Vincent shouted, seizing my hand. Our connection felt like a flame igniting a wild patch of earth. And as we bolted forward together through the swirling mist of shocked faces, a fierce resolve propelled us toward the unknown, that we were propelled by hope, but chased by uncertainty, racing past the dark figures that had threatened to ensnare us. Our hearts thumped like war drums echoing promise. We were seeking a path illuminated by courage and a vision gifted to those unresolved hearts yearning for the truth. The crowd erupted into a frenzy, shadows recoiling from our forward motion as we raced toward a door bathed in a light so bright it felt warm against our skin and opening to freedom on the horizon, beckoning us like a lighthouse guiding lost ships home. It was there, in that unraveling moment, as we crossed the threshold and stepped away from darkness, fear was eclipsed by the unwavering hope for tomorrow. I glanced back knowing the path before us may yet be perilous, but released my grip on the chains of doubt. In leaving the darkness behind, we forged into the vibrant expanse of the untold story lying ahead of us, a testament to choice and trust bound between us. "Whatever happens next, we will face together," I whispered. Vincent smiled softly. The weight of burdens lifted, the world around us hazy, yet holding a promise of brighter things to come. And as we plunged into that weightless brilliance together, fearless and forever changed, freedom embraced us. And I knew in the depths of my heart, we were ready to reclaim our story. Sometimes, stepping into the unknown is the most profound act of bravery we can offer ourselves, and in that dance of uncertainty, we found it, the light to guide our way, bright enough to conquer even the darkest of shadows.